Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Mana on the Rocks. It is I, Joe. It's local brew time. You know who we got. My co-host, Atlas.
Hello, everybody.
Joining us this week, we got the man, we got the myth, we got the Fblthp god. Bailey, introduce yourself to the people.
Hi guys, I'm Bailey, part of Team Cedh, and we're here to talk about my favorite, the one and only Fblthp.
Damn right we are. Damn right we are. But before we talk about Fblthp, Atlas, what announcements do we got to talk about this week?
Not much. I think everyone's getting ready for the holidays, winding down a little bit. I do know that the PDX group has been plugging two of their tournaments that are happening this weekend on December 9th and 10th. They're doing something at Guardian Games, one of their monthly events, and then they're also doing something at the Portland Game Store. Normally, I wouldn't announce something as they're just kind of like local, like monthly events and nothing major. But the PGS event is going to be a starting point for PDX's distribution of eminence points towards the National Qualifier Board. So with that in mind, I'll actually be making an appearance there this weekend on the 10th to play some games and try and get a couple of points more towards our totals. I think a couple of people in the area are going to try and really show up and rep Washington and Oregon, Portland area for CDH. We're going to try and get some places on these boards. So that's really cool. But then aside from that, I don't think there's much. It's just we're moving into the holidays. And I think that's really like starting to slow things down. I know that Bailey mentioned they were from the CDH team, which I'm also a part of. And then that group is also going to be putting on a new event starting in January. They're going to start their new run of tournaments, so that'll be really exciting. So keep yourselves posted to the channel for more news about that, or join the CDH Discord or the Man on the Rocks Discord. We'll be posting information about that there.
Absolutely. Speaking of the Discord, still looking for some questions that we want to answer. Still want to do a Q&A episode, so please. If you're listening, link is in the doobly-doo and in the show notes. Please come on by. We're always there. We're always chatting. We're always keeping it breezy, but not as breezy as this week's lucky patron. Shout out to Rez. Thank you for your support. Speaking of keeping it breezy, we got some Fblthp to discuss. So, gentlemen, let's get ourselves a drink. Probably covered this in the intro, but Bailey, say hello to the people.
Hi guys, it's Bailey.
It's Bailey indeed. All right, Bailey, you brought us something that I haven't seen in action, but I've heard whispers of. What have you brought for us?
Yeah, it's Fblthp the Lost. It's how I got into CDH, honestly. Like I got invited to a pod and I played like Jessica Dargo as like my first ever deck.
Ooh.
And then Fblthp I played as my second deck, and I've had it built for the last like 3-4 years.
Nice, that's awesome.
Okay. What drew you to Fblthp?
You want me to read them?
You know what?
Or
Sure, absolutely, yeah, go for it.
he says when he enters the battlefield, draw a card. But then the most important part is if he entered from the library or was cast from the library, draw 2 cards instead. And then if he becomes the target of a spell, shuffle him into the library, and he costs 2, and he's a 1/1.
Okay. So it just the raw card text on Fblthp just made you go, yeah, this guy's the greatest.
Yeah, throughout my life, when I've ever played Magic, I wanted to play a bad deck, and then win with it, and take a bad strategy and make it good. And I saw Fblthp, and I was like, "There's no way this deck can win a game," and we make it win games.
Nice. I love that. I love it in your primer. It literally says, "Do not play this deck if you do not like playing good decks. Play this deck if you like playing bad decks."
Yep.
Yeah, no, it took a little look see through the primer. There's definitely some like fun stuff in here that I don't want to spoil for anyone that wants to go through the list on their own and read the primer on their own time.
Highly recommend that. It's a really good read.
Yeah, no, it's a great time. I love it. All right, so you did run through Fblthp. So what does, in kind of like a broad like sense, like what does the deck do? It's mono blue.
Yeah, so since it's mono blue, it's inherently going to be a control deck. You're not going to be turboing out wins unless you have the God hand. But the main win con is we're going to assemble like a Doomsday-esque pile with a Proteus Staff. And Proteus Staff is an artifact where you pay 3 mana, put target creature on the bottom, and then you polymorph. You reveal until you hit a creature. But if you look at the deck list, you'll notice that Fblthp's the only creature in the 100 cards. So we're going to hit Fblthp. The thing about Proteus Staff, it says that you put the revealed cards on the bottom in any order. So we get to stack our 99 cards, whichever order we want. And then in theory, we'll win from there.
That's
in theory, we'll win from there.
I love that. I love the idea of just playing 99 card Doomsday. That sounds like so much fun.
Yeah, it is super fun.
I have a question. So you say in theory, does that just mean like the pile is non-deterministic sometimes, or it's like if someone interacts with you?
Most of the time, it's pretty deterministic. If your opponents stop you, they stop you. But the pile revolves around you casting Sensei's Divining Top like 50 times. So if there's a Ristic Study out, you're probably going to end up getting stopped.
I see.
But if there's no Ristic Study, we're golden.
Then we are golden.
Like literally just counter it. I mean, like you're in mono blue.
I know there's a lot of counter spells.
Yeah, I was gonna say he has answers for Ristic Studies.
Yeah, no, I can't wait to get into the interaction suite specifically and the win line. There's some crazy stuff in here. Absolutely insane stuff that I can't wait to talk about. Cool. Okay, so we're looking to land Fblthp. We're looking to land. So does the combo specifically only work with Proteus stuff, or?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
The other ones are typically spells, and as soon as he becomes a target of a spell, he gets shuffled back into your deck, or in this case, goes to the command zone, so we can't use those cards because they're spell.
I see. That is not something I would have considered. So you literally, like, if someone targets your Fblthp in response to, like, your own Proteus Staff, that can cause a problem as well, huh?
Yeah, correct. The Fblthp will go to the command zone, and then your Proteus Staff will fizzle, which does suck, but most of the time, hopefully it doesn't matter.
Okay, yeah, okay, huh. Yeah, I guess it does work that way. I never thought about it. Oh, good, that's cool, interesting.
So does your deck, notice you're on, like, Stifle and stuff. I think I saw Stifle in here at least.
Yeah, there's just a raw Stifle.
So is that like tech to play around your own trigger if someone tries to like mess with it, or?
It can be used for that. I've used it for that once. But Stifle's kind of just in there to stop win cons. If you target a Kenrith's 5 ability or Thassa's Oracle, they feel real sad.
Why As a Kenrith player, I can attest that we do feel really sad if you do that to us.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Oh, I love this list. I'm just smiling just because like it's Fblthp. I love Fblthp. Ever since like I got into Magic and I saw what's the first card? Lost Together. The like instant that like puts two
Totally
creatures back that mentions Fblthp.
Right? Isn't it Totally Lost?
Yeah, Totally Lost. Yeah.
That's it. I'm just always like Fblthp's great. I love him. And I have a little collection with like all the Fblthp cards on.
This little guy's got a whole
I'm
saga
excited for
around
this
him.
list. He's a funny little dude.
Yeah,
he is a funny little guy.
That is the name of the deck. Is he's just a little guy? Where have you been? Fblthp the Lost. All right, so with that, let's hop into this list. Let's dig in a little bit. Okay, so you said the win con is assembling a 99 card Doomsday pile using Proteus Staff, and to that regard, Tezzeret the Seeker tutors up Staff on his X activation. Is there anything else that I'm missing with this card? Like, does it do anything cool?
I've used his -5 once to win the game. It's like if everything's gone to shit, someone's stole your Proteus Staff and you have no other way of winning the game, he can technically win you the game.
Okay. All right.
And then Tezzeret's +1 untaps the One Ring, and that's been pretty sweet to do.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I can see that. Are you playing any other key effects or anything like that to abuse the ring, or is this just kind of upside on your tutor?
It's just kind of upside. I've thought about playing the key for the One Ring, but in reality, if I'm casting Tezzeret, it's going to go get Proteus Staff most of the time.
Yeah.
So I never end up actually playing the One Ring too often.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense.
I was about to say, can't you just like key untap the Proteus Staff? Then I read the last line on Proteus Staff.
Yeah, that's what makes it a very bad card. It only has a sorcery.
Yeah, and for those who are unaware, that particular line of text means according to the game's rules. So even timing adjustment cards like Born Upon a Wind or something like that don't allow you to actually abuse the card at instant speed, which is really, really unfortunate.
God, I think we'd be living in a different world if Proteus staff was instant speed.
I as a fellow blue player would be really intrigued and quite happy to be there though.
So right,
Yeah.
if that text is removed off Proteus staff, I get that text removed off Birthing Pod. That's how this exchange goes.
Okay, so moving
Yeah.
into sorceries, we got like a standard suite here, a lot of cantrips. I assume they're just to like see more cards, but also you've got some other stuff that we'll get to. That's kind of storm centric, but Aetherflux Reservoir is one of them. So, do cantrips serve any other purposes aside from like just seeing more cards and fueling storm count?
They dig deeper. They pitched your forces, which is very relevant. You do play 23 artifacts, and sometimes you have relevant spells you don't want to pitch. So you having a Ponder or Get Probe that you just hold into your hand and not cast is relevant. But yeah, they just dig deeper. I kind of took inspiration from Teferi, not the Time Raveler, the 6-drop Teferi.
Mm-hmm.
And they're playing a lot of cantrips just to see more cards. So I'm like, mono blue, it's probably worth it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm very familiar with that strategy, and yeah, the deck does play a lot of cantrips just to be able to set you up to dig a little deeper. Because similar to Fblthp, I would imagine we aren't casting our commander too early, and it seems like that's kind of the strategy with Fblthp is you don't really care about casting this card super early. Am I mistaken?
Yeah, correct. You don't need to cast them early. If you have nothing else to do and you have 2 mana, go ahead and cast them. Or if you have like a Fierce Guardianship, definitely cast him. But he can wait until turn 6 or 7 when you try going off.
Yeah, because
Okay.
staff needs 3 mana to activate, and it's a 3 mana activation. So at most, you need 8 mana to go off on one turn. But like mono blue historically is really good at just pumping out a large amount of mana in one go.
Yep,
Yeah.
it is very good at that.
Yeah. I do. So for our cantrip suite, at least in the sorceries, I see Get Pro, Ponder, and Serum Visions. Why Serum Visions? That's a weird one. I like no Preordain.
Preordain is a very good card. Serum Visions I have in there literally just for I have a cool version.
Hey, sometimes that's all you need.
Yeah, Preordain's probably a little bit better of a card, but I have a cool version of Serum Visions, and they do essentially the same thing in my book.
Okay.
Put 2 cards on the bottom and draw a card.
They don't even leave them on top. We know these cards are going to the bottom already.
Literally just draw a card. That's all we care about. Descrying
Yeah.
doesn't matter. Okay. Cool. Has 3 like cantrips felt like it's been enough, or like do you feel like that number needs to be more?
It could definitely be more. I've been toying around with Brainstorm, and putting in fetch lands, because currently there's no fetch lands in the deck, and making it more of a slower deck with like a counterbalance and other cards that use the top more to their advantage. But I haven't had any problems with like the top card getting stuck there, because you have Fblthp. He can draw you a card to dig you deeper in your top. So I haven't had too much of a problem with needing more cantrips.
Okay.
Cool.
Merchant Scroll is a card that other mono blue players will certainly be familiar with. What does that grab? Is there any like dedicated targeting for that spell, or is it just like get the best counter spell available?
Most of the time, it's just go get Force of Will, or any of the other weird instance that we're playing, like Hercule's Recall. It can go get to give us like a little bit of a storm turn, or it can give us like a Storm Dismissal type effect that bounces Heuristic Study, because we lose to Heuristic Study.
Okay.
And then,
Yeah.
of course, War of Invention.
Yes, a very big one.
Okay, yeah. So it does in a way grab a win condition. Okay, cool.
Okay,
Cool.
yeah. And then you got Transmute, Fabricate, Windfall is Mono Blue's Wheel of Fortune. So that's all seems pretty par for the course.
Anything particular on those? Just we're an artifact deck. We play these cards.
Yeah, correct. Windfall can be Time Twister if you don't really care about your graveyard getting super full. And then you can do like Time Twister loops. But Time Twister is a pricey card.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, all you have to do is go win one of these series, right? One of these things that
True.
they're hosting over on the East Coast now. Yeah, simple, easy.
It's just that simple.
Super easy.
So yeah, instance we got 31. That's pretty high even for mono blue, but a lot of counter spells. So I'm gonna move over most of the like generic mono blue staples you can find in here. You got like offers and packs, etc., etc. Some of the more interesting cards that you're playing, you have a spell called Fading Hope, which is from Midnight Hunt. For those who are not familiar, it's a 1 mana instant that returns target creature to its owner's hand. If its mana value is 3 or less, you get to scry 1. Does this card do what I think it does? Does it just put Fblthp back in your hand and allow you to scry 1 and then draw another card?
No, it does not. Fblthp
Okay.
will get shuffled in because of his being targeted by.
Oh, right. And we already talked about that. Okay.
We need a lot of bounce spells because that's Mono Blue's way to answer creatures, enchantments, stuff like that. So this is here to answer like a Collector Oof or a Dranith. Because if we're going the Proteus Staff way, the line, we can't win through a Dranith or a Collector Oof. So we're playing 8 or 9 bounce or kill spells to just make sure we have an answer to remove them.
Yeah, which is like Pongify, Rapid, things like that. One of my favorite cards that I think I've come across recently is Stern Dismissal. This is another 1 mana instant that returns target creature or enchantment an opponent controls to its owner's hand, which seems pretty like a pretty standard unsummon effect. But you played this card against me in tournament about a month back, and it really set the table for a loop because we had a deflecting swat to answer it. And for those of you who listen carefully, it says return target creature or enchantment an opponent controls to its owner's hand. So that swat got a whole lot worse when we couldn't just deflect it right back to your Hullbreaker Horror or something.
Yep. Yeah, it's a card I've been putting in a lot of just my other blue decks because I think it's a very underrated card. And if you're not going to take advantage of your other bounce spells like your Chain of Vapors, like you're not going to bounce your own stuff to ritual off of them, I think Stern Dismissal is by far a really good card. Sure, it doesn't hit some artifacts that you want it to hit, like the One Ring, but it hits just about everything else in the format you want to hit.
Like Ristic Studies and Draenei Studies,
yeah. On like a critical moment, like it does bounce back a breach. Like if you catch the breach player without 1 red available, like you can just stop the turn right there.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. I think more enchantment interaction is generally going to be a good thing. I always like having at least one piece of like dedicated like this answers enchantments in a deck, especially one that like you have such easy access to just because you're in blue. Like your instants and sorceries are like pretty easily catchable with things like Mystic Tutor and Merchant Scroll.
Yep.
Yeah, like this card a lot. I think probably before I'd seen it in action, it would have been one of those cards where I was like, why play this? Win something else, but I definitely see the argument for it now, and it seems very strong. We mentioned Stifle earlier.
A Stifle enjoyer.
Yep, classic at this point. Little underrepresented in CEDH still, but it's a very strong effect that has a lot of really versatile applications, and I think Stifle effects scale very well based on player skill. So it's cool to see that you're running this. Out of curiosity, because you're not on Trickbind, is there a reason that you chose Stifle over it?
Yeah, there's a lot of situations where I'm trying to progress my own game plan, and I have like 2 free interactive spells in my hand, and I'm like, I really want a third, but I don't want to leave up 2 mana. And I realize that I leave myself 1 island or 1 blue source open quite often when I pass the turn. And there was a lot of times where Trickbind just got stuck in my hand. So I just switched it over to Stifle.
Okay.
But Trickbind is probably going to make the list when I work on this deck a little bit more.
Okay, totally fair. I see you're running Daze. That's another free counter spell. Is there any cool synergies with island bouncing that I'm missing? Or
no, you play like Daze and you play Gush, because when you activate the Proteus Staff, the way you break the pile most of the time is with Gush and the Fblthp ability, but then you can throw a Daze in there as well because you're about to win the game, so you don't really care if you bounce a land.
Okay, all right, that makes a lot of sense. It's a lot of the faster really low to the ground decks that try to win super super early consistently. Like I know that Inala has been playing days for a little bit now, or at least talking about going on and off days based upon the meta. Just because it, once again, if you're winning the game, you don't care about hitting that land drop.
Oh,
Yeah.
I've seen null players play Daze before. It's incredible. I love Daze.
Yeah, it's a very good card. I think more people should probably play it because it's just another free counter spell most of the time.
Yep. You can get him with that. You can get him with that tech. You say I hard cast Days, and they'll say, "All right, resolves," and put their spell in the graveyard. Okay, you got Hercule's Recall. You mentioned that. It's for storm turns. Allows you to reset a lot of your free rocks, I'd imagine.
Yep.
You can also target someone else to like hurt them going into a turn if there's like a rule of law in play or something like that, I'd imagine.
Yep, yeah, I chose Hercule's Recall other than just Recall, which is just 1 mana, but it only bounces your artifacts. Just because sometimes you will need to bounce your opponent's artifacts if they're like a Kinnan deck and they're about to present infinite mana and they have an untap on the battlefield. You can kind of screw them there, but that's a bad case scenario because they'll just replay everything and we'll probably still lose. But it's in there just in case.
Just in case, you might be able to find some
Bounces
way to...
a 1 ring. Seems
Yeah.
fine enough to me.
Yeah.
You can put a Hercule on the stack and then a Silence over the top.
Yep.
Something like that. Okay, Narcissus Reversal. And then there's one other spell that you mentioned in your primer that I'm going to lump in with this card. You lumped in Commandeer with Narcissus Reversal. And I think it's really cool that you're playing both of these cards. Can you talk to us a little bit
What's
about
the interaction there?
about why these cards?
Yeah, they're the 2 best cards in the deck, if we're being honest. You're mono blue, so you're already at a huge disadvantage with anyone playing 1 more color than you, if not 4 more colors than you. And so you really have to take advantage of your opponents playing good cards and mulliganing very aggressively. And Commandeer and Narcissus Reversal lets you do that. The amount of times I'm against like a Rogsire or Blue Farm player that mulled a 4 or 5 for a turn 1 Rhystic Study, and I've commandeered the Rhystic Study and just won the game because one player is null and void and I have the best card in the game.
That's insane.
Yeah, it just makes it so people can't play greedy against you, or if they do, you just win the game. Or stealing a Adnaz after they spent all their resources protecting it is also insane.
Yeah, I can imagine that Mono Blue would love to copy an ad nauseum. Your curve is really low. You have a low average. Yeah.
It'll win you the game. It checks all the boxes.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Got a couple more free counter spells. You have Snapback. Now, why Snapback versus Snap? Because in my mind, Snap seems generally better because I don't have to pitch a card. Like, yeah, it gives you a free cast, I guess, but you don't have to pitch a card, and the spell is still effectively free after it resolves.
Yeah, we play Snapback just because it's a tech I took from Cody. When Cody goes to activate and add Nazes, you can't cast any more permanents once Cody's still on the battlefield. So you have to have a way to remove it, and Snapback is the main way in the deck that you add Naz into Snapback to remove your own Cody in order to storm off. It's kind of like that, but if there's a Dranith, you need the Snapback if you have no mana open to bounce their Dranith so you're able to present a win.
Okay.
Yeah. If you have like 1 mana, any of the other 1-drop removal spells will do the same thing. But there's times where you can present a win with 0 mana after activating Proteus Staff. And so you really want the Snapback.
You really want the Snap. Okay. Yeah, that checks out. Okay.
Yeah,
Mystical
that makes sense to me. Especially like, yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, because like the whole point of the deck at a certain point, we'll break this down when we get to artifacts. Like that makes sense. Like you can kind of like pump fake the fact that you can like you'll be able to get off the Proteus Staff in front of a Dranith, and everyone's gonna be like, okay, that happens. There's a Dranith. You just stack your deck. You draw your Snapback plus you're out, and then you're just live afterwards for like Mystic Forge, or just start playing your rocks and going. I think that's sick. I think that's tech. I think Snapback might be better than Snap here, actually.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the expert says it is. So,
Yeah, no, I'm agreeing with. I had to go through my own like mental calculus to be like, okay, I see where we're going. You're cooking. You're cooking. I like it.
Okay. Still an instance because holy crap, there's a lot of them.
Got a lot.
Mystical Dispute, Pioneer All Star, a card that many players will be familiar with. It's kind of just like bad mana leak, but also better mana leak at the same time. 3 mana counter spell, but you can play it for 2 less, and the costing is blue and 2. If it's targeting a blue spell, and then it counters the spell unless the controller plays 3. Notably, it doesn't have to be an instant, just a blue spell, which answers the card that you lose to, right, Bailey?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
It says counter target Ristic Study.
Yeah, it counters Ristic Study. It's the mono blue red elemental blast is how I view it. It's one blue mana counter a blue spell, which is a very good rate majority of the time. And yeah, it just counters every blue spell because most people aren't going to pay 3 to protect it unless it is a Ristic Study.
Yeah, that's really fair. Okay, Whir, Trap, Force, and then Gush, which, of course, for anyone familiar with Doomsday strategies, great card to break the pile with.
Yeah, card's insane.
Okay, moving over to artifacts. Got another
this is where the
chunk
meat
here.
and potatoes is.
Yeah, this is probably the core of the list, right? It's most of your self-advancing game plan comes down to the artifacts.
Yep, correct. Yeah. Unfortunately, the way my deck is built, it can't really be a budget deck just because you really need all the moxes and all the fast mana in order for the deck to function.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I was gonna say, so we look through the list here of like the different artifacts, and a lot of them seem really standard to me. But the one that really stands out, and this one, it probably has something to do with Doomsday piling. But Lion's Eye Diamond is the second artifact in the list as I'm looking at it, and you don't play Underworld Breach. So what's this card doing here?
It's a Black Lotus. Once you crack your pile and you stack your deck, your hand is null and void after that, so it's just add 3 mana, so you're able to cast your whatever you need, your Senses Divining Top, your Aetherflux Reservoir, Grim Monolith, whatever is the next bow in your chain.
Okay. Alright, that's pretty straightforward. Bunch of free rocks, Petal, Crypt, Amber, you have a 2-cost commander, makes sense. Diamond, blah, 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 blah. Paradise Mantle, so we're turning Fblthp into a Birds of Paradise.
Yep.
Yeah, because it's only spelly bounces, so abilities are fine. Yep.
Yeah. Nice. Okay, Expedition Map, pretty standard. Just getting all your utility lands and stuff, right? Things like
Yep.
Tabernacle, Odawara.
Yeah, and then it has Inventor's Fair, so you can tutor into a tutor land.
Okay, so you can actually use Expedition if you have enough mana or enough time. You can use Expedition Map to tutor into an artifact, which would be Staff, which wins you the game. Okay, like that. Mana Vault, Pithing Needle. It's a good stacks piece. I guess we're just filling slots here, and it's a useful card in mono blue.
Yeah, and it gets fetched off of Urza Saga, so you have an early one, and there's some kind of threat at the table, like I normally use it on a Thrasios or Kenrith, to slow them down and to stop their progress. It's pretty good in that scenario.
Yeah, okay, that checks out. It seems really good. Soul Guide Lantern is another really good card. Graveyard Hate can also cantrip you, so theoretically you could use it to crack your pile.
Yep.
Okay, nice. Springleaf Drum is another way to abuse Fblthp for mana. Some more rocks. Curse Totem, since we're in mono blue, this card never affects us. Okay, now here's some more interesting ones. And this, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's just for top comboing, right? But Helm of Awakening.
Yeah, it's one of the cards that goes into our pile. The end result of our pile is an Aetherflux Reservoir, Senses Divining Top loop with the Forge, Mystic Forge, where you're able to draw your deck, gain a ton of life, and then kill the table with damage. So you need the Helm of Awakening to make your top free.
Okay, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, we're not able to play any of the other cost reducers, so this is basically the only one we can play, right?
You can play Cloud Key, I think is the name.
True. Yeah, Cloud Key, but then we give that to our opponents.
Yeah, there's another one. The helm also does reduce your opponent's spells as well,
That's
but
true.
it is just a 2-drop, which is the cheapest rate it is.
Mm.
So we're playing it because it's the cheapest one.
Yeah, I think that makes sense because I don't think you're ever dropping Helm of Awakening unless you're actively going for it. And if you're going for it, I feel like you're so covered and you're so protected, or you're just able to just squeak through that it doesn't really matter that you're letting your opponent's counter magic go for free.
Yeah, correct.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. And so then, right after Helm, it's Staff, Reservoir, Mystic Forge, and the One Ring. A very
The
good
One
magic
Ring.
card.
Yep.
Okay. 4 enchantments. Pretty standard. Mystic Remora, Dress Down, Rhystic Study, and Back to Basics. We're playing 19 snow-covered islands, so that tracks to me.
Yep.
I don't think I've ever seen a cleaner enchantment list for any deck apart from Mono Blue playing these 4 enchantments. Like I like it's just so good. Like each one of these cards individually are just so goddamn and oppressive and incredible, and just win the game all on their own. It's so clean. It's so clean.
Yeah,
They are very good.
Yeah, they are very,
Very, very good
good
cards,
magic
yeah.
cards. The landing like an early back to basics against 3 opponents who are playing 3, 4, or 5 color decks pretty much just gives you a victory, in my opinion.
Yeah, if it lands, it's lights out for everybody else.
Okay, so then you got 32 lands, most of which seem pretty self-described. There's Academy Ruins, Buried Ruin to recur your staff or other artifact combo pieces. Got your Ancient Tomb. Cephalid Coliseum is for utility. Got a Command Beacon to pull your guy out through a Drannith Magistrate. Emergence Zone, go off at instant speed. And then Inventor's Fair. And the one that, the 2 cards that really had me just out of curiosity, you had the Mouth of Ronan, which is a snow land that taps for colorless, but also has pay 5 and tap it, sacrifice it, deal 4 damage to target creature. Is there, just to answer Drannith Magistrates, or is there a specific reason that you're on this card?
I took it from Yusan, from when I played Yusan.
Yeah.
You're able to play Snowlands in the Mouth of Ronan in that deck, and I was like, why not play it in any of the other monocolor decks? Because it's just a free land that can kill things.
Okay, sweet.
I don't think I've used it once, but it's there.
But just in case you ever needed it.
You also have like increased access to it with things like Expedition Map as well. So I think it's a really good card to just have in your suite of like lands. Like that's one of the easiest upsides to playing anything monocolor is you can run a lot of really, really good utility lands. I know one of the issues that mono green has for a lot of it is sometimes you just don't have forests in your opening hand sometimes because you just run so many crazy utility lands. Why 32?
It was higher. It was at 34 at one point.
God.
Just because I was like, I need to hit my land drops, which is still kind of true. There's some games where I still get mana screwed. Because in this deck, the main way you break your pile is with the Fblthp and then Gush as well. It lets you see 3 cards off the top of your pile. And you need 2 islands in order to cast the Gush. So we're playing a super high amount of islands and then a super just high land count. So we see more lands often enough to make sure that when we do try winning, we have enough islands to go off.
Okay. Yeah. No, I can see the logic there. Yeah. No, I can see the logic there. I think the 4 extra lands that you play over like any other traditional land count makes sense when you need specifically 2 of one kind of land. That checks out for me. Yeah.
And then I have a couple of questions about like the gameplay overall. But real quick, you have a couple cards in your sideboard here, like a considering board. Things like Homeward Path. You're considering, looks like Mycosynth Gardens. And then the one that I was really curious about was that Isochron Scepter's in your sideboard. As opposed to like in the actual deck, even though you are main decking Dramatic Reversal. So what's the thought process there on those 3 cards?
Yeah, Isochron Scepter is like the main win con in like the outdated Fblthp list that's on the database. And through my testing, they use the Isochron Scepter and Codex Shredder to present a win by milling your opponents out. but Isochron is such a dead card 99% of the time, except when you're trying to win. I switched over to the Mystic Forge line, just so I don't have any bad cards. Like if I play Mystic Forge, I kind of get some kind of card advantage off of it, and Aetherflux Reservoir gives me some kind of life gain. Where Isochron Scepter is only good when you're trying to win. So we removed a dead card and made a little bit more complex win con, but hopefully you see better draws and you don't see a hand that's like Isochron Scepter and you're tempted to put a counterspell under it.
What could ever go wrong with that?
You
Oh,
can't.
nothing. What do you mean? I'm using my win con to stop other people.
No, you just
That's
bounce
the
it
game,
afterwards.
right?
You just bounce it afterwards. Okay, so you're playing one creature in your deck. The Green Dragon Inn, as it displays on Moxfield, or Homeward Path, allows you to. It has each player gain control of all creatures they own, which I was a little bit intrigued about, like the fact that you're just considering it, because if you're not casting Fblthp super early, and like Fblthp doesn't do anything inherently, do you run into a problem where people gilding draking you is a big issue, or?
There was a 4 or 5 month period where the only deck I played was Fblthp, and it did get to the point where people were Gilded Draking my Fblthp every game. So I was just on Homeward Path. So I
wow.
could get my Fblthp back, but I took it out because I stopped getting Gilded Drake targeted, and even if so, I could target the Gilded Drake. They would get a creature, but then I could target Fblthp. He would go on the bottom, and then I will flip into him anyway. Because Proteus Staff says any target creature. So it's a 2-turn window, but I don't need to play a bad land of Homeward Path. So there's still
Okay.
one out if I get Gilded Draked.
Right. That makes sense. I was just curious.
So
I guess.
funny.
Wow,
That's so
they were
funny.
gilded draking your Fblthp.
Yeah.
Damn, you're really terrorizing
I was
them.
gonna say you traumatized some people.
Yeah, I think I had a 50% win rate or something
Jesus.
with Fblthp
Oh my
in the
god!
local meta.
And they say that this deck is bad, huh? You say this.
I say the deck is bad.
I mean, I feel like that might just come down to colors at that point. I think the bones and the idea of this deck are really, really strong, personally.
Yeah, I was curious about, because like it seems like a really important part of this deck is the utility slots in your lands. I was curious about Mycosynth Gardens. Like, what does this card accomplish if you decide to put it in?
I put it in as soon as it got spoiled. I was like, this card's gas. And then I played it, and I think the spells that you normally want to copy with it, like your Mana Vault and your Grim Monolith, they don't untap during your upkeep.
Okay.
So Mycosynth Gardens copies Soul Ring. It's really good when it copies a Soul Ring. Or it copies Lion's Eye Diamond that you just crack right away.
Right.
In those two cases, I don't think warrants it enough to play a land that most of the time you're not going to activate.
Okay, yeah, that tracks. I didn't think of that, but yeah, if you do counter a Mana Vault or copy a Mana Vault with this card, you're stuck with now 2 tapped Mana Vaults as opposed to 1, because the X ability taps to activate.
Oh, I just figured like, oh, you're killing my Proteus staff. I'm gonna make another Proteus staff. Was my line of thinking anyway.
No, that is also another good failsafe. But you're never going to have 4 lands untapped with the Mycosynth Garden and a staff out most of the time.
Okay.
Okay, and then the last question about the sideboard was Mystic Sanctuary is a land you are not on, which I found very intriguing, considering that basically every time I've ever played Mono Blue, a Mystic Sanctuary has been in there. Though I guess you're not on fetch lands, so it gets significantly worse.
Yeah, it gets a lot worse without fetches because you can't like end step go get it and put a spell like a tutor on top or whatever. And then all my spells, all my instants or sorceries, honestly aren't that good at progressing your game plan. They're really good at stopping the game plan, but then you have like 4 or 5 cards that progress it. And putting one of those on top doesn't help you at all. At least in my experience. So it's out right now, but it will probably come back in when I put like Nexus of Fate in and try doing a little bit more greedy things, because this is a very safe list.
Okay. Yeah, it seems, you have so much permission and removal. It does seem very, very safe. I guess one of my questions would be about, like, overall deck performance is what happens when you get into very responsible, very safe games where everyone else is also playing super cautiously and your meta isn't just a bunch of turbo lists. Like, how does this deck perform then?
It's great. The pods that this deck really struggles up against is the mid-range decks where they just outvalue you, but it's like control decks versus control decks. Eventually, Fblthp will outlast most control decks and just present a win that's protected, or wait until everyone else has fought it out and then come in afterwards and win. But if you're into like playing Kenrith or Thrasios, you're gonna have a really high win rate against Fblthp because he just sits there and lets you do your thing.
Love to hear that. I love to hear that.
That's great. I was gonna say, I feel like just looking through the list, I don't even need to. Yeah, anything that lands on the battlefield that you don't have an immediate answer for seems like an issue for this deck. But that's
Yeah.
just kind of mono blue.
I do gotta say, if you're playing Timna, please don't attack me. I guarantee you I will block.
I guarantee I'll block.
Yeah, you get to redraw with Fblthp.
Block for free, basically.
Yeah.
You have no sweepers in the deck, aside from, of course, an overloaded Rift. But I was wondering if that's ever an issue since you're playing literally 0 creatures. Because when I've played Mono Blue, I haven't really played it as a polymorph list, or if I have, it's been Urza. And so you always have at least a semi-decent blocker. Whereas we just talked about it, like you have a throwaway blocker, but like you have no way to like establish a solid defense to people just repeatedly just donking you.
Yes, they just bonk me. Most of the time when I'm going off for the win, I have like 12 life. Just because people are like, hey, he has a 1/1. They're not gonna block my 3/3 beast that I got. And I'm like, fair, I'm not.
Damn, you saw the line? Congrats.
Yeah, so I just get punched a lot, but that's okay because you have 39 life before you're dead. So
That's
as long
true.
as I have 1 life, I can still win.
Okay, I love that. It's a great way to look at it. Life is a resource.
All right. Now, I want to start talking the doomsday pile. I want to know. Okay, we've done the game plan. We've cast a Fblthp. We've stopped the other players. We've landed the Proteus staff. We successfully have activated all of our things. What are we doing post doomsday? Walk me through the steps in theory. I'm so excited to hear this.
Oh boy. Okay. Top card. Well, we have to look at the scenario.
Okay.
If we have 0 untapped lands, so like no mana we can have afterwards,
Mhm.
the line gets a lot more tight.
Okay.
And if we have no islands or 1 island, basically impossible. So we pray that we have at least 2 islands to start out.
Okay.
But assuming we have 2 islands and we did everything correctly, the top card typically is a Gush, because that's going to let you dig 2 cards deeper.
Mhm.
And then depending on if you have mana open or available after you activate it, you can go get a counterspell like Force of Will or another counterspell or a bounce spell, depending on what the board state is. And then
Okay.
typically you put all your 0 drop or your mana positive rocks that you have left in your deck after those, with your Mystic Forge coming right after you're able to produce 4 mana off of the 3 cards that you see after Gush. So you're going to draw 2 off of Fblthp. One of them's going to be Gush, and another mana rock. For this case, let's call it Mana Crypt. And then Gush, you're going to see 2 more cards, and let's say Soul Ring and Mox Amber.
Okay.
You can cast the Mana Crypt. I guess that doesn't work because you would need your Mystic Forge. So
Yeah, you still
just
need Mystic Forge because you're only seeing 4 cards if you're going through that line.
Yeah, so you need 4 mana out of 2 cards, which is pretty simple, of Mana Crypt, Mana Vault. That will get you there, and then you cast your Mystic Forge, and then you just spam your 0 mana or 1 mana positive mana rocks until you get to Helm of Awakening,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can cast something like a Soul Ring or a Grim Monolith into Aetherflux Reservoir, and then Sensei's Divining Top, and then draw your deck and then kill the table.
Okay, and we're killing the table with Aetherflux Reservoir. There's not really a backup win con in the deck. There's not really one that I could think of playing, really.
No, I thought about Brain Freeze, where you
Okay,
can draw
yeah.
all the cards in your deck and then mill the table out. Might be a card I add, might not, but there's the Codex Shredder Isochron Scepter
Mm-hmm.
that I would recommend for people who are trying to pick up the deck, to put those in as like a safety outlet.
Okay.
Because I play the deck super safe, and I'll sit there for 2 hours waiting for my time to win.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're a little bit more impatient, I would throw in the Codex Shredder and Isochron Scepter, because it makes the lines a little bit easier to understand.
Okay.
I did have a question, because talking about the whole idea that there's no, like, there is effectively no backup plan. We're just going for a very safe, very guaranteed win. Why? Obviously, we can't play creatures, but the Jace Wielder of Mysteries, like, it's a dead adjacent card, but also it still wins you the game, and it can draw cards, it can break piles and stuff. So is that a card that we should consider at all when looking at this deck?
Oh no, it should definitely be considered. I was playing it for 2 to 3 months. I was also playing like the 4-drop Teferi that you can activate on each of your opponent's turns for a
Mm-hmm.
little bit, because taking 2 extra turns, eventually you'll end up winning the game through that. But I found that they're a little too slow, and in some hands they're very dirtily, and they don't get you to your end goal quick enough.
Okay.
I have a question. No imposter mech?
Yeah, that's an honest mistake on my end. For the longest time, for like
Okay.
7-8 months, I thought the card was a bad magic card, and then I
Okay.
played Atraxa. It is not a bad magic card. It's insane. You ever
Yeah.
copied an Orcish Bowmaster with that thing?
I've heard it's
The
pretty good.
the table is screwed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's gonna find a home in here. I just have to figure out what comes out.
Okay, I was gonna say, because like if we're light on the mid range matchup and we just need like another like decent thing that we can just stick on the board and just be annoying, that also doesn't interrupt our game plan and it's like pretty mana efficient and like accessible through all of our artifact stuff. I feel like Imposter Mech is just like gas.
It is very good. I just thought it wasn't a playable card up until recently.
I mean, that's totally fair. I think when that card came out, I also was like, I can't copy my own stuff. Why the heck would I want to play this card? And then it didn't see a lot of, like, it was played in like Urza Polymorph and stuff, but it wasn't like super useful. And then Orcish Bowmasters got printed, and suddenly the card got a lot better.
Yeah.
Yeah, crazy how that happens when everyone starts playing busted stuff. The clone effects get insane.
It makes me wonder if there's a way to clone like the One Ring, or have you ever considered Mirror Maid in this deck? It's a
Oh yes, yeah. It was in when I first built the deck. It was in there. It's not currently in, because 3 mana at a sorcery speed kind of feels bad, but it can definitely probably be in the sideboard at least.
Yeah, it seems like an interesting choice. I think that assessment is correct, though. I think 3 mana is a little hard for this deck to like want as its interactive piece, especially at sorcery speed.
Yeah, I would agree too, but also like at the same time, it's just Rhystic Study casting cost or a discounted One Ring.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It seems fine now with the One Ring.
Yeah, it seems like there's probably a lot of viable targets for it, but once again, I have no context for playing this list. It is so well crafted to the way that you like to play the game. It's really something to look at.
Thank you. So much time has been put into this deck.
I can definitely see that. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, I think just the I think the decision to hop off of like Codex Shredder and Ice Scepter onto the Aetherflux Reservoir Mystic Forge plan, I think that's a very, very heads up level like decision that you can really only get once you've put a lot of time into a list.
Yeah.
I mean, I've recently gone back and revisited some of my older lists, and I've changed around the win cons entirely. That my OG like win cons that were like stapled to the deck are no longer to be found because there's just better, more efficient, more flexible things to do. So I really, really respect that decision because I do think like you will just have games where you just have a Mystic Forge and you go, well, I guess I'm playing with Mystic Forge now, and like it's fine. Get rid of this land that's on top and just draw a card, I guess.
Yeah, what I've noticed whenever I go to like a new deck and then I come back to Fblthp, there's a new idea that comes up. So I think if the number one thing people can take away from a deck like Fblthp is it's okay to move away from your pet deck for a little bit. Like I haven't played the deck in 4 or 5 months, if I'm being honest. But I found a new idea for Fblthp that I'm very excited to try out in the next few months.
Oh,
Okay.
excellent. Are you
Okay,
willing
I
to
love-
spoil some of your secrets for us, or are you going to keep it a
Yeah.
surprise?
Oh,
So think about Fblthp,
uh-huh.
but we take out Proteus Staff and we play creatures.
Wait.
What?
Wait.
What?
Well, Fblthp is a outlet in the command zone.
I know exactly where we're
Oh
going with
my
this.
goodness! Yeah, you're right, isn't he? If you
Yeah.
generate infinite mana, he does technically outlet from the command zone.
Yeah, so I think he's just a 2 mana activate your early things like your Force of Negations and other Fierce Guardianships, and you grind out value with the One Ring, Ristic Study, stuff like that, and then you play a Nimrus-esque style of deck. That's why there's like a Born Upon the Wind in the sideboard. We maybe focus more on an instant speed game plan, and then we play Hullbreaker Horror and Tidespell Tyrant, and we just draw our decks out and find a way to win from there.
That's fascinating. Well, I'm really looking forward to seeing that game plan come together and some testing with that. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, no, I think that I unfortunately think that might be stronger than Proteus Staff. As much as I'm sure that pains you to like come to that decision, but also I think those are really great cards to be playing in its slot, and like you're playing every card that you want to play for that list is just generically a good card. You're getting to play what Mono Blue has 2 polymorph effects they can play.
Oh, they have more than that. It's just how good are
That's
they?
a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Two good ones, I should say, right?
Yeah. And like
yeah.
I've even thought about playing like the man lands, like a Mutavault in the land base, and then we can go
Wait,
from
that's
there.
hot.
We can polymorph those or Proteus Staff those into the Hullbreaker Horror.
Okay.
That seems a little too greedy, but it's a possibility.
Okay. I like it. All right. So one of the things I always am curious on. Not every deck exists in a vacuum. Every deck isn't perfect and has no counterplay or anything. What are some of the biggest ops this deck faces? I know we've talked about Drannith Magistrate a lot, and that seems like it's the biggest like common played card that this deck struggles with. I feel like a lot of our interactive suite and a lot of our like decision for interaction comes down to does this or can this deal with a Drannith Magistrate?
Yeah, that's Drannith is a big one, and then the best X piece of Ristic Study or Mystic Remora. You have to be kind of dumb if you're going to try presenting a win with those on the battlefield.
I love the bluntness. Just don't try it. It's not gonna work. It's been tested. You're dumb.
Yeah, sometimes you'll win, but you should never try going for a win with the Ristic Study unless someone tried going off the turn before you with your own Ristic Study out. But yeah, Ristic Study, Mystic Remora shuts down the deck. Another card that we don't like seeing, which I wish we could play but we can't, is Grafdigger's Cage.
Yeah, that is like one of the few stacks pieces that this deck can't play because we need to be able to cast cards from our library.
Yeah, it's the bane of Urza poly players everywhere that they can't be on Cage.
Yeah, and the thing with that is that it's mono blue, so you only really have like Cyclonic Rift, Chain of Vapor, and Otawara are like the 3 main things to get rid of it. because all your other interaction spells don't remove artifacts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I guess you don't really want to play Resculpt because, as you said, like, you're just gonna get donked every time with the weird that you're giving people. You can't really,
Yeah.
like, you don't have counterplay for that.
So noting
Correct.
that there's not a lot of interaction for artifacts, do you find Null Rod to be a problem?
Yeah, it's definitely a problem, but it's in the same realm as Collector Roof. You can just wait until you find one of your answers. You're a mono blue control deck, so you don't care too much about the Null Rod. It hurts a little bit more, but it's also hurting your opponents just as much. So we're all getting hurt as much. Where Graph Digger's Cage, it's really only affecting you and maybe the Kennen player at the table. But
Mhm.
the other two players are just going ham for Null Rod. If a deck's playing Null Rod, they're already a bad deck because they don't have all the super fast mana. And then the other two players are also getting stopped. So we're a lot more happy with a Null Rod than we are with a Graph Digger's Cage.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that seems to be my experience as well. I feel like null rod effects, like, they will get removed at some point, and no one wants them around, but they can stick around for a while. Graph Digger's Cage is just one of those cards that's just, it's so aggressive in what it stops. It stops so many different strategies and things.
Yeah, and we're on 32 lands, so Null Rod doesn't totally blink us because we
That's
will
true.
just make our land drop every single turn.
Yeah, without fail, we will find lands. We will play spells.
Yep.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah, this list is so well thought out.
Yeah. There's a lot of just good stuff in here that I really like. There's hardly a single card that I look at and I go, maybe not. Every card has reason. Every card has a place. Every card is multifaceted. This is, yeah. No, I dig it. I love it.
Thank you.
Of course. Do you feel like there's anything that we, like, glossed over or didn't talk about enough that do you feel like we should go over, give some spotlight to?
The Tabernacle.
Oh,
the
that's
only real
true.
thing.
That's true. We didn't cover the Tabernacle.
It hurts so many decks. I played against a Najila player this weekend,
They could
and
not
they had
win.
like 13 soldiers out, and I played this, and they got left with just a Najila, which is insane. One land board wipe seems really good.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's very good. No arguments here. I know I would be upset to see this card come down against me.
Yeah, I wouldn't like seeing this card either, man. I love playing creatures. This card says heck to all creatures.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, Tabernacle's such a sweet payoff stack. I guess that's kind of your sweeper. You don't have a lot of access to it outside of, like, Expedition Map. But, like, it's an impressive card that I'm genuinely shocked we don't see a lot more usage of. I guess because it's like $2,000 or whatever, but, like, everyone's proxying anyway, so I don't know.
I was gonna say, aside from that, I think it's just with the mid-range world we live in, like, I think it's just a lot of decks are playing value creatures, and they don't want those creatures getting popped at the beginning of their next turn or before they can do anything with it, right? So
Cool. Well, anything else beyond the Tabernacle?
Nope, I think we've hit everything.
fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, of course.
Absolutely, man. I had a great time. Please, if you have places that the peoples need to know about, by all means, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I'm part of Team CEDH. That's SEAEDH, as well as Atlas.
Yep.
Check out the Discord. It's a bunch of good people, and they try playing Magic almost every night there, and we're gonna get to the top.
Heck yeah. Great plug. Thank you.
That's the only really big plug.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna give a plug for you real quick. As always, we're gonna have the deck list copied to the Mana on the Rocks Moxfield account with links to Bailey's personal account and deck list. So go check that out because the deck list will be locked on the Mana page. But Bailey's list, I'm sure, will be flexing and changing as like they experiment with all these new ideas all the time. So go ahead and check that out. Give them some upvotes, leave some comments, ask some questions, and just share the love a little bit.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, gentlemen, thank you. Another local brew in the books. Got to cover a really cool one. Bailey, pleasure having you on, my friend. As soon as Atlas was like, yeah, I think I want to get Bailey on, I was excited because the last event that we were all together at, I heard about your list, and one of my buddies was talking about how, like, you were just not even looking at the top card, just flipping cards, calling them out, correct them. Like, this guy's a G. I love this. I gotta talk to him about this list.
Yeah, of course. It's just what happens when you have to play Fblthp. You just gotta flex on him.
You just gotta be better.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening. We'll catch you next time.